Well, with Dan Quinn becoming the head coach of the Washington Commanders, that means that Aaron Glenn does not get a head coaching job again. And it means that unless something strange happens, he's back for year number 4 as the Lions defensive coordinator. And probably this season, maybe with the exception of Cam Sutton and Jerry Jacobs at times, Aaron Glenn was probably the most polarizing person on the Detroit Lions roster, so to speak.
Yeah. He took the most heat.
Correct. A lot of people think he did a really good job basically making an amazing batch of chicken salad because the roster, especially in the secondary, was awful. And they were top 3, I believe, run defense.
Yes.
But they were like 25th or 27th in pass defense, if I'm not mistaken.
19th in total defense, 23rd in points allowed.
Okay. So, 248-539-9797. What would the Lions have to do, in your mind, for Aaron Glenn to earn year number 5?
Well, they've got to show. So first thing has to happen is he's going to have to get some more players. And I don't mean just, fill the roster. You've got to get more dogs on the defense. It's another edge rusher, and it's a cover corner, a number 1 corner. Whether it's through the draft, which I know could take a little time to develop and get their feet wet and get playing at a high level, but it can be done. And they just need more support, more players to be able to do things with. Because at the end of the year, we saw a shift from trying to get, whether it was Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, the cast of characters up front to put pressure on the quarterback, along with the linebackers here from here and there, to a much more aggressive style, bringing pressure from corners, safeties, nickels. And they were, in the last 6-7 games, they did a much better job of pressuring opposing quarterbacks, but it put a strain on the secondary. Mm-hmm. So it's a risk reward that we've talked about. If he gets another playmaker in the secondary, 2 playmakers, let's say a safety and a corner, and then you go and you get an edge rusher, I would expect that they would maintain, especially with the hiring of Terrell Williams as defensive line coach and a run game coordinator on defense, the top 5 status in stopping the run. But I would expect them to be a top 10 team in total defense. And they were, 19th in total defense.
Mm-hmm. Top 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if they're 12, am I going to say he's fireable? Right. No. But that's my expectations going. I'm not going to sit there and say, well, I want him to be a 15. No, I want him to be a top 10 defense. And I think that's possible.
I would want that too. I think we all would want that. To me, if they have a similar record and the defense does improve, let's say to the top 15, I'm okay with that. As long as, and don't forget, look, statistics are deceiving. A lot of times you give up points in garbage time. Offensively, sometimes you score points in garbage time. You're playing prevent, yards accumulate.
It all comes out in the wash.
Right. But, even eye test, you can tell if the defense is good. And the Lions' run defense was good statistically, and it was pretty good eye test-wise. Secondary was bad in both, right?
Yes.
248-539-9797. For Lion fans, what would it take for you to, say, you know what? Aaron Glenn's done a good job. He should be here for year 5. He's going to be here for year 4 unless something happens.
Yeah. What were your expectations? And I think the other thing we should ask, too, is, and I do believe that most people want or think Aaron Glenn should be back because he is going to be back. But were you hoping that he would get the head job so that you could, without having to fire someone, without having to, quote unquote, move on from someone, that you could get somebody else as DC? I
know there are tons of people.
There are tons of people
who feel that way. Absolutely. I mean, there's one sitting 8 inches from me.
Right. Yes, but that's close.
20 inches, whatever. Whatever. It's Gov. He's sitting next to me. All right.
Yes, it's not even arm's length away.
Yes. Okay.
4
It's
feet,
like, yeah.
5 feet,
Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
probably 5,
yeah.
Well, let's just so we can please HR. 6 feet.
60 inches.
Yeah, 6
72
feet.
inches.
Yeah. 6 feet apart. Anyway. Yeah, and I know Gov has been very vocal that he was hoping he would get a head coaching job so that you can move on and hire somebody else defensively. I think he's done a good job with the cast of characters he's had to deal with. He has shown that he is stubborn at first, which I'm okay with. You want a guy that buys in and understands his philosophy and is willing to stick to it, but then eventually you're going to have to make some changes if it's not working, and he did.
Well, they did that when they fired Aubrey Pleasant. Now, whether he just went along with it or it was his idea, I have no idea. That was just a Dan Campbell,
Yeah, but basically in the end they went to, okay, we're going to be a bend, don't break defense, and we're going to try to stop you in the red zone. Honestly, that's what and to me, that's not a way you have a great defense.
No.
That's picking the path of least resistance.
True, but
the evidence in the 3 years, look, I don't have a problem with him being back. The thing is, yeah, I wouldn't have minded if he got a head coaching job because I'd be very intrigued by the options that they could get at DC. I don't know what's in the DNA of Aaron Glenn in terms of having a defense. I really don't. Look, the run defense got way better this year. You got to give him credit for it. I just think I'm just questioning, okay?
Yeah, I know.
I think when a guy has defenses in his first 3 years at DC that are all in bottom 10 points allowed in the league, which is the most important defensive stat. It is a game about points. Who scores the most? How many you give up? All that you have to hold him accountable. And we have a coaching staff over the first 3 years where an OC was kicked to the curb right away, and that was the right move. And positional coaches have been. But it seems like he gets more rope, and his bottom line result is not very good, the one that matters the most. I think there needs to be significant improvement. Like, he has got to get into the upper half of points allowed this year. They gave up 100 more points on average more than the other 3 conference finalists. That's huge.
It is huge.
That cost them home field advantage.
Well,
okay? and guess what? They gave
especially giving up those yardage to Nick Mullins and those guys. I mean,
and they had 2
but there's still wins. I understand you're giving up points, but it's all about the win.
Yeah, but it's also jaded a little bit, and you play the game, and you play by the final score, right? And all that. 2 of those games, they allowed 6 points against the Falcons, which their offense was horrendous, okay? Yeah. And Tampa hadn't quite found its offense yet, and there was a big drop in that game, by the way.
Yeah.
So they give up over 23 points a game this year.
To answer, though, your worry or your concern that they went to the bend but don't break, which is very frustrating, and I remember when Wayne Fontz's defenses used to have that. In this case, though, because of the loft on this team, lack of freaking talent, especially in the back end, I don't think he really had a choice except to do what they did, bend but not break, and occasionally, have to run some blitzes and things like that just to be different. Because if they went with a standard or whatever his defensive philosophy is, they would have been torched even more all season, don't you think?
Yeah. And here's the other thing in terms of what I expect from this defense, because you're going to be facing a number of quarterbacks that are mobile. Obviously, if Justin Fields is still in Chicago, even if he's not, if say it's Caleb Williams, he's a mobile quarterback. Jordan Love is a mobile quarterback. You're going to be facing Dak Prescott. You've got other guys that you're going to be facing that are mobile quarterbacks. He needs to find answers. Some of it's personnel. Other is how do you keep a mobile quarterback from beating you and extending all of those first downs?
You want another stat?
Sure.
I'm resting my case on points allowed. In the playoffs, they gave up 26.6 points a game.
That's not great.
That was higher than the regular season.
And 2 wins. And they
23 in 2 games, which was this team average over the year.
Right. And then in the game against San Francisco, it was a turnover on the 20-yard line. There were a number of different things that allowed them short fields, opportunity.
Dropped interception.
Yeah. I mean,
look, but I'm sure that goes both ways too. So,
but is it on the defense to give up? Okay, maybe you could stop and give them 3 if they get the ball on the 20-yard line versus a touchdown. Right. But how much is that? How much are you going to blame the defense for giving up a score in that situation?
No, I know. I tend to agree. But I mean, like, then you go the other way with offensive numbers. Sometimes they actually had good field position too. So I'm saying team-wise, that stuff kind of goes.
Then what's it come down to? The win.
Yeah.
You use the Loft argument, though. Why isn't half of it on him? I feel like there's some pass being given here. I just do, because the bottom line number is not good, and it's not going to win you a Super Bowl. Go find me a team that won the Super Bowl that gives up plus 23 points a game.
I know.
That you just don't find them. So there's a lot of work, and I agree, talent is a problem, okay? And how about youth? The youth of the talent.
Yes.
I think the talent might be there, and so that's where I have I think he could potentially be a better head coach than a DC. I just think that's the kind of coach he is. When you start hearing about him and the leadership aspects and stuff, I don't know. I desire to try to have a Raven-like defense here, and I see absolutely none of that.
Well, I don't think they have, especially on the back end, those type of players like a Kyle Hamilton. You know.
Yeah, I mean, no, they don't have that type of guy. But
they could have.
They could have, yes, but they don't. And so you're looking at it going.
Was he taken after Jameson Williams, by the way, or before?
Kyle Hamilton, yeah, he was. Yes, he was. I want to say he was like 15 or 16.
You take Hamilton, though, then are you taking Branch? And I think look, Hamilton has another year under his belt.
Right.
I think you could make an argument right now on who's the better player is right there. Probably Hamilton, because he had such a good third season here or whatever.
Yeah, he's one of the best in the league.
Yes.
Again, please hear what I'm saying overall.
Right. You're not saying he's a bad coach.
I think there has to be a real evaluation. And he's going to stay, and he's going to be the guy. But to me, this is the biggest thing facing them. And I have concerns. And maybe it's not fair because I don't have any evidence. But you know what? They are friends. And I just am picking up. I think I have a little evidence on this team. Okay, well, his friend DC is getting more chances, and the results aren't there. And also the organization's amount of rope that they're giving to some of their draft picks. And these are things I'm looking at this offseason.
Yeah, but we played the audio from Dan's press conference on Monday. And it was, I'm not going to ask Greg to pull it up right now, but it was basically the production has to be there. It's players and coaches. You can't fall in love with your guys. You can't fall in love with the guys because eventually production will taper off.
Right. We'll find out next year, like Uzureke, people like that who hadn't panned out.
Yeah.
They have to be gone.
If there's no production, there's no reason for them to be there still.
Exactly.